She found one text message, and 6 months later, her husband lost everything. Not just the marriage, not just the money, his company, his name, his reputation, because the woman he treated like background decoration didn't scream, didn't beg, didn't cry. She stayed quiet, opened his safe, and planned the most humiliating public revenge of his life.
Deals. They call her the ghost wife. This is the story of how Evelyn Hart brought a billionaire's empire to its knees without a single whisper. Picture a ballroom, her husband toasting his success, and she enters like a phantom, Deals. But then the light catches the diamonds at her neck, and Victor Hale nearly spills his champagne. Beside her is a man whose reputation alone can silence a room. Evelyn is not there for mercy. She is there to execute. Now, before we break this down, Deals, help me out. Drop your city in the comments, hit like, and stay with me, because Evelyn's final move is one you will never see coming. Deals. Let's set the scene. In a 22-room mansion on Ashbury Lane, you could hear no sign of her. Evelyn Hart stood beside a massive window, her coffee going cold. She watched a groundskeeper rake leaves into a mound the wind would only scatter. She had been there for 40 minutes, so still that the housekeeper, Marguerite, passed her twice without a word, like you would pass a statue. It was just another Tuesday in October. The sort of day nothing is meant to happen, which felt so much worse than chaos. Deals. Victor left at 6:30 that morning, precise as a timepiece. He kissed the top of her head the way one might touch a photograph, a gesture with no feeling behind it. He mentioned a city dinner, a ready excuse for his late return. Don't wait up, Deals, sweetheart. He hadn't meant that word in years. It was now just a sound he made, his mind already somewhere else. She sipped her coffee. It was bitter. The housekeeper brewed it strong, just how Victor liked it. Deals. Nobody had ever bothered to ask Evelyn her preference. 7 years in his house, and not a single person asked. Deals. On a marble side table, a phone starts to vibrate, its rattle sharp and sudden. Evelyn doesn't flinch. She knows the sound of her own phone intimately, like a mother knows her infant's cry, and this was not it. This was the other phone, the burner. Deals. Victor said it was for the bad reception in his study, or for taking calls by the pool. But 3 months ago it stopped going to the pool. It started going to the garage, then the garden. And 2 weeks ago, he began taking it into the bathroom. Deals, the sound of running water masking his voice. It buzzes again. 3 rapid pulses. A text. Evelyn puts her coffee down. Deals. She crosses the room in her socks, the carpet swallowing the sound of her movement as she picks up the phone. Victor never gave her the password, but Victor was not an imaginative man. His mother's birthday opened his safe. Deals. His mother's birthday opened his wine cellar, and now his mother's birthday unlocks this phone. 4 simple digits, the screen glows. The new message says, tonight wear the red one. I want you in it, and then I want you out of it. Deals. The chat history went back 9 months. Evelyn stood there completely still, and she did not cry. Deals. She did not gasp. She did none of the things the 24-year-old girl she once was would have done. The girl he proposed to in a sunlit vineyard, promising she was the only one forever. Now she was 31. She hadn't aged. She had hardened. Deals. And her next move was simple. She started to read. She read every single message. She scrolled through months of hotel bookings, room numbers, private jokes, and then a name. Scarlett. Scarlett, baby. Scarlett, you absolutely destroyed me. Scarlett Vane. Deals. 20 junior vice president at Hale Capital Partners. Deals. Evelyn had met her once at a Christmas party 2 years before. Scarlett was a new hire, poured into a navy dress that fit like a second skin. Evelyn remembered seeing the girl's perfect posture. Deals. She remembered Victor's hand lingering on the small of Scarlett's back just a second too long. And she remembered killing that thought, refusing to become one of those paranoid wives. She had fought so hard not to be that woman. Deals. She reads a text from August. She has no idea. She never will. Women like Evelyn don't ask questions. She's furniture. Deals. Furniture. Evelyn's thumb stops on the screen. A stray sliver of sunlight catches her wedding ring, casting a small, trembling spot of light on the wall. She watches that tiny light quake, and then she places the phone back on the table. Deals. Precisely where it was. Screen down, 3 inches from the lamp. She leaves. She crosses the hall, climbs the grand staircase, and walks past the portrait of Victor's grandfather, whose eyes always seemed to be judging her. She enters the master bedroom. Deals. She closes the door. She sits on their bed, and still there are no tears. That cold absence of grief told her everything. She was already someone else. Deals. A younger Evelyn would have collapsed right there on the floor. This Evelyn sat on a bed she had picked out, in a house she had furnished, while her husband was otherwise engaged. And a thought formed, with a clarity so cold it was agonizing. Feels, I will take every last thing from him, and he will never see me coming. She didn't have a plan, not yet, but she understood that the woman by the window was a wife. The woman on the bed was a weapon. There was no going back. The furniture had stood up. Feels. She gave herself 3 days to reveal nothing. Feels. For 3 days she kissed Victor hello and asked about his day. She ordered groceries, smiled at her emails, laughed on cue at his dinner party stories. 3 days of pure observation, studying him as if seeing him for the first time. Feels. The small twitch at the corner of his mouth when he lied. How his hand drifted to his phone every 7 minutes when he believed she wasn't looking. The way "I love you too" sounded like a line he was reading from a bad play. On the 4th day, Feels, she called a lawyer. Not their family lawyer, not the man who wrote their prenup while Victor's father stood over his shoulder. Feels. Evelyn was far more calculating than that. She called a woman named Diane Kessler. Diane had represented the ex-wife of a tycoon Evelyn had once met at a charity gala. That woman, loose on gin, had whispered to her, "If you ever need a way out, call Diane." Feels. She is a surgeon. You won't feel a thing until it's over. Evelyn had saved the number on a cocktail napkin and hidden it inside a book she knew Victor would never open. She made the call from a payphone at a gas station, 40 minutes away. Feels. Understanding that her home was no longer a private place. Feels. The payphone felt sticky, its receiver smelling of stale cologne. Evelyn gave Diane's name to a detached receptionist, and 20 seconds later, a sharp, controlled voice was on the line. "This is Diane. My name is Evelyn Hart. I need to leave my husband, Feels, and I need him to be unaware I am leaving until there's nothing left for him to possess." A short silence followed, just long enough for the weight of the statement to land. "Can you be at my office Thursday at 11? "Yes. Don't bring your phone, Feels. Do not drive your car. Tell no one. If you're asked, you had a hair appointment that ran over. I understand." Feels. "Evelyn? Yes? What does he have that he believes is untouchable?" Standing there in the gas station lot, Evelyn felt the wind on her face, and for the first time in 4 days a smile formed. It was not a happy smile. It was a small, Feels, knowing smile that would have chilled anyone who saw it. "Everything," she said. "He believes none of it can be touched." "Good," Diane replied. "Those are my favorite cases." Diane Kessler's office was on the 38th floor. Feels. Feeling less like a law firm and more like the study of a woman who had never, ever lost. Feels. Books filled every shelf, every table, and were stacked in columns on the floor. No degrees hung on the walls. There was only a single photograph of a younger Diane on some courthouse steps, her expression grimly serious. Diane herself was 56, Feels, with short silver hair and spectacles on a chain. She wore no jewelry except a plain gold wedding band, a watch that cost more than a small house. "Sit," Diane said. Evelyn sat. Diane opened a file. "Tell me everything," she began. Feels. "Let us start with the prenuptial agreement." And so Evelyn told her. The document was supposedly airtight. She would get $2 million, a car, and their cottage in the Hamptons, a gift from Victor's father, Feels, who had no clue what kind of weapon he'd just given her. Feels. Everything else belonged to Victor. The city apartment, the mansion, the fine time in an entire corporation. Diane tapped her pen on the desk. $2 million, she says. "That's what he'll pay for you to go quietly." "Correct. So what is he hiding that's not in his financials?" Evelyn took a breath. She told Diane of a dinner back in March where a drunk Victor bragged about a deal with a Gulf shipping company. A deal constructed on fraudulent invoices and profits that had vanished completely. Feels. That profit was moved into a foreign bank account in a country Victor never dared to speak of. She told Diane about a humid night in July when 2 strangers visited Feels, and she overheard Victor on the phone saying regulators couldn't touch the money if they hid it inside the Caldera deal, followed by a laugh that made her skin crawl. She told Diane about the safe in the library he believed she was too foolish to open, Feels, and she told her of the ledger she had found inside, how she put it back then, not knowing she was handling poison. Through all of this, Diane simply listened, never writing a single word. Feels. When Evelyn finished, Diane took off her glasses. "Evelyn," she began, "do you grasp the gravity of what you've just told me?" "I do. You're saying your husband is a dedicated white-collar criminal." "No," Evelyn said. Feels. "I'm saying my husband sees me as furniture, and furniture doesn't read secret books. But I do. For the first time, a faint smile touched Diane's lips. Very well, she said. Here is the plan. For 4 months, feels. The plan was a silence so absolute, Victor Hale felt nothing in its void. It began with a new bank account, in a town Victor didn't even know existed. Feels. She began using her maiden name, a name unspoken. For 7 years, one Victor had mocked, Evelyn Marsh. She'd laughed when he called it common. She wasn't laughing now. In fact, she liked the sound of it. Evelyn Marsh was a woman who controlled her own money. For 11 nights while Victor was away, she photographed his ledger page by careful page. She scanned every paper in his study. Nothing was ever moved. Victor was the kind of man who would notice if a pen was shifted even an inch from its place. Feels. But he never noticed his wife had memorized his entire desk, down to the precise angle of every pen. She stopped wearing her perfume. For 7 years, it was the same jasmine scent from their honeymoon. Now she wore nothing, just herself. Feels. It was a quiet rebellion, a slow act of erasure, a test to see how long it would take for him to notice. He never did. Then, as her lawyer instructed, she began to film him. Not with her phone, but with a small spy camera from Diane, the size of a lipstick. Feels, capturing his world in short, damning loops. Feels. She filmed his secret business calls at the dinner table. She filmed him in the study when he believed she was sound asleep. She filmed the men who came at strange hours, leaving with briefcases that felt heavier than when they arrived. Feels. She expected sleepless nights. She did not expect the deep, ice-cold calm that settled in its place. Some nights, she lay beside Victor, hearing him breathe, and thought, "This is your last winter in this bed," utterly unaware that you are being watched. Feels. She first heard the name Adrian Volkov on a frozen Thursday in January. Feels. There was snow on the ground. She had just left a 3-hour meeting with Diane, reviewing divorce papers that would sit unfilled for another 6 weeks. Timing was everything. A driver from Diane, a silent man named Miguel, was taking her home. He never spoke, Feels. Never met her gaze in the mirror. Then Diane called. "Evelyn, yes. We have a problem. The shipping company from the ledger. What about it?" "It isn't Victor's." "What do you mean it's not his?" Feels. "I mean your husband is stealing from another man's business. And this man doesn't use lawyers to settle his disputes." Feels. Evelyn stared out at the snow-blanketed streets. "Who is he?" "His name is Adrian Volkov." The name was like a faint echo, something heard but not remembered, a piece of a forgotten dream, perhaps from some party or a news headline she had glanced past. Feels. Diane paused. "He's 41, born in a country that no longer exists. He came here at 22, started as a driver for a mobster named Kasparian. By 28, Kasparian was gone, and Volkov had his entire operation, Feels, including his 3 top men. Feels. Legally, he owns a shipping line, a construction firm, and several restaurants. Illegally, he owns a great deal more. He has never been arrested, never charged. 3 investigators who looked into him lost their jobs. 1 lost his home. Feels. He avoids all interviews. He avoids parties. He is a ghost. If you search for him, you find 8 results, and 6 are for the wrong man." "What does he look like?" Evelyn. "Diane, tell me what he looks like." Another silence. "He looks," Feels. Diane said with great precision, "like a man who has never been told no in his life." Feels. Evelyn watched the snow fall. "Does he know what Victor has been doing?" "He is starting to. And how do you know that?" "Because," Diane said, "Adrian Volkov and I had dinner last night." The line went completely still, so still that for a brief moment, Feels. Miguel the driver's eyes met hers in the mirror before snapping away. "Diane, yes, I want a meeting." "Evelyn, that is not why I'm calling." "I know," she said, "I want to meet him anyway." But Diane did not agree that night or for the next 2 weeks. Feels. In that time, Evelyn never mentioned it again. 7 years with Victor taught her a lesson about power. To make someone come to you, you must remain absolutely still. Feels. On the 15th day, the phone rang.
Saturday.
7:30. The address will be sent. Be on time. Bring nothing and wear nothing valuable. Do not mention Victor unless he mentions him first. How will I know when? Oh, you will know. Evelyn arrived Saturday at a location that was not a restaurant. It was a private room above one, up a dark back staircase. Inside sat a single table one man, and 2 others, by the window, who had mastered the trick of watching her every move while ignoring her completely. Feels. The man at the table stood when she walked in. He was tall, taller than Victor, which she noticed first because Victor wore his height like it was an accomplishment. Adrian Volkov was different. He was dressed in a black suit, no tie, heels, his white shirt unbuttoned at the throat. His face could have belonged to another time, like a man in a photograph from the 1920s. His eyes were dark, his mouth set in a hard line that looked as if it had forgotten how to smile. Mrs. Hart? Miss Heels. Marsh, she corrected. I'm using my maiden name now. He only observed her, as if taking her measure. Heels. He then gave a short single nod, as though she had passed some silent test. Mrs. Marsh, please sit. She sat. He sat. A waiter appeared holding a wine bottle with no label, poured 2 glasses, then vanished without making a sound. Heels. Adrian's hands were perfectly steady. His nails were clean. A fine white scar ran down his right thumb, a scar she would one day ask about, and he would tell her a lie with a smile, allowing her to believe whatever she chose. Diane tells me, he began, Heels, your husband has been stealing from me for the last 3 years. I believe, she replied. That is what his ledger shows. Heels. You found this ledger? Yes. How? He believes I don't know the combination to his safe. Adrian watched her for a long moment. And do you? I first opened it in August, Evelyn said. And 41 times since. Heels. A flicker of something crossed Adrian's eyes. It wasn't a smile, it was recognition. The look of a man who realizes he's dealing with a different kind of opponent. 41 times. I kept a count. Why? Evelyn told him. Heels. Because the day I stop counting is the day I start lying to myself about what this is. Adrian put the bottle down. Mrs. Marsh, he said, why did you want this meeting? Evelyn had an answer for this, one she had practiced for weeks. Heels. She had written speeches and burned the pages in her sink. She opened her mouth to deliver her polished, rehearsed words, and instead chose to do something else entirely. She told him the raw truth. Heels. Because my husband traded 7 years of my life for a 26-year-old who calls him baby in her texts. I can ruin him in court for $2 million and a house, but it's not enough. I want to ruin him in a way that he feels in his bones. Heels. I want him to become the cautionary tale men tell about husbands who treat their wives like property. I can start it. I cannot finish it. You can. I am here to find out what that service costs. Adrian Volkov stared at her. Heels. He stared for so long that one of his men shifted his weight, and Adrian, without looking away, lifted a finger and the man froze like stone. Heels. Mrs. Marsh, Adrian said, his voice soft. You have misunderstood this situation. But Evelyn felt nothing. She would realize later that her heart had gone cold. Her capacity for fear was exhausted. She asked, How? You thought I came for a settlement. Heels. I thought I came to hire you. He said, Hire me, and then he revealed the true game. Your husband steals from me. I've known for some time, and like Diane said, I was handling it. But what I didn't have, until she gave me your name, Heels, was someone inside his house with a key to his safe and a camera in her purse. Heels. I did not have someone who had memorized the angles of his security pins. He leaned forward, his voice even lower. You are not here to ask for a favor, Ms. Marsh. You are here so we can decide if we want the same thing. If we do, I won't be taking your money. Heels. I will be offering you a percentage. Evelyn sat like a statue. A percentage of what? He replied. Of what is left of your husband when we're finished. She did not answer at first. She simply lifted her wine glass and took a sip. The wine was perfect. Heels. She knew nothing about it, only that this was not wine you buy. This was wine you were given. Heels. Mr. Volkov, he cut her off. Adrian, she continued. Adrian, I have one condition. He replied simply, name it. She laid it out. When this is over, he cannot know it was me. Not at the start, not in the middle. He can only know at the very end. Heels. I want him to live his days thinking I was weak and fled. I want him to tell his girlfriend I was pathetic. I want him to laugh about me at dinner parties. Heels. And then I want to walk into a room where he stands and have him understand in a single flash that every good thing he ever lost was my hand holding the knife. Adrian just watched her. Mrs. Marsh, she corrected him. Evelyn, he said. Evelyn, Heels. That is not a condition, that is the plan. She almost smiled, almost. But she didn't smile for anyone anymore. Then we have an understanding, he confirmed. We have an understanding. Heels. That night, she trades her home for a hotel. Signing a name, Diane gave her Evelyn March. She sits framed by the window, a dress too expensive for the room on her back, sipping tea delivered by a ghost. Outside, Heels. Snow blankets a city she is about to conquer in a way she can't yet name. At 2 a.m., Victor's message illuminates the dark. Where are you? Then another. Marguerite says you didn't come home. Evelyn reads the words, sets the phone screen down, Heels, and offers only silence that night. For 5 more that follow, before typing just 3 words back. Heels. I needed air. His reply flashes in under 90 seconds. Sweetheart, you scared me. Please come home. I'll be better, I promise. Evelyn stares at the message, a promise already broken, then deletes it. She lifts the hotel phone and dials Diane. He's scared. Heels. Good. Diane's voice is firm. That is precisely where we need him. Evelyn lays out her plan. I'm going back tomorrow. I will shatter. I will weep. I will let him put me back together. He must believe he's getting me back. Why? Diane asks. Because, feels. Evelyn says, her voice low. I have 47 more documents to shoot, and his pity will be my cover so long as he thinks I am broken. I will use every second. Feels. A long silence breathes down the line. When Diane speaks again, her voice is softer, edged with something like awe. Evelyn March, she begins. Where in God's name? She cuts herself off. Where have you been hiding? Feels. Evelyn just watches her own reflection in the darkened window. A woman who ceased being furniture months ago, but only now sees it. In that house, she says softly. I've been hiding in that house. She returns on Monday. Feels. She cries in the foyer as rehearsed. A performance made easy by tears that are real, just not for the man holding her. Feels. He holds her tight, his suit smelling of another woman's shampoo as he whispers that he loves her. He means it, with the temporary conviction of men like him. He means it in this moment, but will mean something else tomorrow, and never notice the shift. Feels. She lets him hold her. Her face is pressed into his shoulder, but her eyes, cold and focused, are on the door to his study. Behind it, a faint safe waits, hidden by a 1958 painting of a racehorse. How many more times must she open it? I'm sorry. Feels. She breathes into the fabric of his expensive shirt. Feels. I don't know what happened to me. I was just so tired. Shh. Victor soothes, stroking her hair. No explanation needed. The pressure's been immense. Let me take care of you now. Let me handle everything. Okay, Evelyn whispers back. Okay, Victor, Feels. You can take care of everything. The second meaning sails right over him. He isn't listening for it. He kisses her hair, says I love you again, and walks into his study, closing the door behind him. Evelyn stands alone, her hand flat against the wall, Feels, waiting for her heart to slow. Then she goes upstairs to draw a bath. Feels. She soaks in the hot water for what feels like an hour. She doesn't cry. The tears were for the foyer, a performance for an audience of one. Here the stage is bare. She is only a woman in the water, thinking. Feels. She thinks of Adrian Volkov's hands on a bottle of wine, how certain they were. She pictures a tiny white scar on his thumb. She thinks about how he said her name, Evelyn, like a rare object he had just decided to acquire. This feeling isn't love. Feels. She remembers what love felt like at 23. This is different, slower, something that has not yet named itself. Feels. She gets out, dries off, wraps herself in a robe. At the window, she watches the snow-covered lawn where a single crow pecks at the frozen earth. Downstairs, from his study, comes the sound of Victor's laughter at something on the phone. Evelyn listens. Feels. She cannot see the entire future, only its final closing, a ballroom months from now. Great doors thrown open, a man at her side. Her husband, Victor, Feels, looking up from a glass of champagne and seeing her, truly seeing her for the first time in 7 years. In that single silent beat just before he understands that he has already lost everything. Feels. She does not smile, not even here alone by the window. She is saving it. The crow launches into the air, a black slash against a gray sky, and Evelyn turns away. Victor's laughter drifts up from below. She dresses with deliberation. A soft gray sweater. Feels. A pair of jeans she hadn't worn since Victor told her they made her look like a mother. She pulls her hair back, simple and severe. No makeup. She has to be the woman who broke and is now gathering the pieces. It is the story Victor needs to believe, Feels, and she will make it unforgettable. She goes downstairs. Feels. Victor hangs up the phone. He's in the kitchen pouring a scotch at 4 in the afternoon. That's new. He always waited until 6, calling early drinkers savages. But it's Monday, and there he is. He drinks half of it before he notices his wife in the doorway. Feels. Hey, he says, setting the glass down, wiping his mouth with the back of his hand. Another, you're up. Better? A little. Come here. She obeys. He pulls her in, and for a beat her arms just hang there, dead weight, Feels, before she remembers her part and wraps them around his back. Feels. He doesn't notice the hesitation. I was thinking, he says into her hair, we should go away. The mountain house you love, just us. Okay, really? Okay, Victor. He leans back to look at her, and for a heart-stopping second, Feels, she thinks he sees it. The shift in her, the new light behind her eyes. But he can't. He sees only what he wants. A fragile wife, ready to forgive a sin she doesn't even know he's committed. Feels. He gives her the smile that closes billion-dollar deals and kisses her forehead. I'll have Marguerite pack. We leave Friday. I love you. Feels. You know that, he adds. She simply says, I know. He never registers that she doesn't say it back to him. He just grabs his scotch and walks out. Evelyn watches him leave. You are so simple, she thinks. You were always this simple, feels. I was just too blind to see. Marguerite enters from the pantry holding a string of onions, stopping short when she sees Evelyn. Marguerite is 61. She has been in this house longer than its mistress, feels, and the look in her eyes is sometimes impossible to read. Mrs. Hart, are you well? I'm fine, Marguerite. You were not here. No. Marguerite places the onions on the counter. Feels. She doesn't reach for a knife. She just looks at Evelyn, her face a mask.
My sister, she says.
Left her husband in 1980, she said.
No one knew. She always said leaving was the easy part. The hard part was the 4 years of kissing him goodnight while you plotted his ruin.
Evelyn is frozen.
Marguerite, this isn't a question, Mrs. Hart. I'm telling you a story. Why? Only then does Marguerite pick up a knife, slicing into an onion with a swift, familiar violence.
Feels. Because my sister is 74 now, living a beautiful life in Lisbon with a garden. The man she left died alone in a state hospital. She did not go to the funeral. I have worked here for 11 years, Mrs. Hart. I have ears. So I am telling you, feels, if you are doing something, I have seen nothing, will see nothing, and I will keep seeing nothing for as long as it takes. Evelyn can't find a single word. Marguerite. Yes, thank you. Coffee? Yes. How do you take it? Feels. Sudden normalcy of it all makes Evelyn almost laugh out loud. Feels. She bites it back. Milk? A little sugar? I thought so, Marguerite says, still focused on the onion. I'll bring it to the library. The trip to the mountains was just 4 days away. That meant Evelyn had 4 more nights to get into the safe. Feels. 4 more days to use the burner phone Diane had given her. She worked with a surgeon's precision. On Tuesday, she photographed a loan agreement between Hale Capital and a shell corporation. Diane had already traced it through a maze of fake addresses, Feels, back to a law school friend of Victor's. A man who supposedly died in a boating accident 2 years ago, Feels. A dead man was, in fact, still signing legal documents. On Wednesday, she hit the jackpot. Printed emails Victor was arrogant enough to keep in his desk. Men so often armor their digital worlds, yet leave a trail of paper, Feels. The emails were from Scarlett Vane, his mistress, and they weren't about love. They were about money. It became clear Scarlett was more than just an affair. She'd been promoted. She was approving illegal wire transfers. Scarlett knew everything. Feels. She was a partner in the entire criminal enterprise. Feels. Evelyn photographed every page. She put them back exactly as she'd found them, slid the drawer shut, and went to bed. Lying there beside her husband, a cold, sharp thought formed. Scarlett is not some victim he's using. She's a willing accomplice, Feels, and that makes her a weakness I can use. On Thursday, she drove into the city. Diane's instructions were to be normal, to create a routine. She went to her hair salon. She went to Bergdorf's. She bought earrings she hated and a dress she'd never wear, Feels, painting the right picture on his credit card statements, Feels. That afternoon, she entered a Chelsea art gallery she'd only been to twice. She was studying a painting of a man's back when she heard footsteps stop right behind her. Miss Beers Marsh. She did not turn at once. Then she did. It was Adrian Volkov, wearing a dark coat, his hair still wet from the snow. This was not a coincidence. This man did nothing by chance. Mr. Volkov. Adrian. Adrian. This is your gallery. Yes. Feels. Diane told me, she confirmed. Good. Adrian held his distance, a deliberate space that made the choice hers alone. How is he asked. Planning a trip to the mountains. With you? Adrian's gaze found a painting. Do you like it? Honestly, I don't know anything about paintings. Nor do I, Adrian admitted. I took this gallery from a debtor. I kept it for the quiet. At night, I just walk. I've never bought a single painting because I genuinely liked it. Feels. I've bought 3 paintings I was instructed to like. One hangs in my apartment. I still don't like it. Evelyn watched him. Why are you telling me this? Because as
Adrian said, for the next 6 weeks, you will lie to your husband's face.
I require that you don't lie to men's face. So, I know nothing of art, and you know nothing of art. We are simply 2 people who know nothing, in a room full of it. That is all. She paused. The trip, yes. He's going to try and fix things. Feels. He'll be on his absolute best behavior, she said. He will tell me that he loves me, and I will say it back to him. I know. Does it bother you? The question was out before she could stop it. Adrian's eyes stayed on the painting. Evelyn. Yes. Feels. We are not in a place where my feelings on your marriage should concern you. We may never be. That will be your decision. I am not a man who pressures people. You didn't answer the question. No, he confirmed. I did not. A smile nearly touched her lips. Feels. Nearly. They stood in the silence a moment more before Adrian finally took a step back. Feels. After the mountains, come to the restaurant. Same time, same table, we will need to speak. Oh, right, and Evelyn. Yes, if this becomes unbearable, you can stop. Your prenup, I will match the amount myself. You can leave, disappear, heels. I will not search for you. Your husband will never know we spoke. This is not a threat. It is an offer. I want you to hold that fact for the next 6 weeks and know it is real. Evelyn could only stare at him. Why are you telling me that? Because, heels. Adrian said, I have known too many people who confuse wanting something with having the means to afford it. I do not want you to become one of them, heels. The price is being paid with your own flesh. I want you to remember you can choose to walk away. I know, but I wanted you to hear me say it. He gave a slight nod and was gone. She watched him leave, then stood before you for another tanting for another 2 minutes, seeing nothing. The mountain lodge was Victor's, an inheritance like his fine watch and his certainty that the world owed him. It sat on 12 acres of total isolation, miles from the nearest town, Fields. The housekeeper had been conveniently given the week off. Victor drove them up on Friday, performing the role of the man she had married for 2 hours straight. He told stories, asked about her book, and even kissed her hand at a stoplight. The act nearly broke her because the body keeps a memory the mind can't control. Her body recalled being loved by this man, and it was a stubborn student. But the mind, in the end, always catches up. Always. Heals. They arrived at the lodge at dusk. Victor made a fire, poured 2 glasses of wine, and sat down beside her. Then his carefully rehearsed speech began. I know I have been absent. This deal is consuming me. I have not been a good bettor, okay? Yes, look at me. She did. It was the same handsome face she had fallen in love with at 24. Men like Victor are never made ugly by their actions. Heals. They just become handsome in a sharper, more dangerous way, a beauty that carries the weight of their crimes. At 43, the lines around his eyes suggested worry, but were only from staring at spreadsheets. He was beautiful. Heals. It was the currency that paid for all of his sins. I love you, he said. I know. Do you love me? The fire crackled, shooting sparks up the flue. Yes, Evelyn said. And it was not technically a lie. She had loved him. The past tense did the work, Heals, and he was arrogant enough not to notice. Victor breathed out. Heals. She felt the tension drain from his body as he drew her into a hug that went on too long. She could hear his smug, steady heartbeat and thought only of how it would continue for 6 more weeks while his life was systematically destroyed. Heals. Her next thought was savage. She hoped it would hurt. Not a quick, clean injury, but a slow, burning shame. The kind you feel waking up in a house that is no longer yours, in a town where nobody answers your calls. Heals. Knowing the bed you're in will soon be gone. The moment your name is a warning. Heals. She let him hold her, playing her role perfectly. I love you too, she whispered, making sure he believed it. And the fool did. They returned from the mountains on Monday. Victor, in his uniquely blind fashion, was content. Heals. He decided the marriage was fixed, just as he'd handled every crisis for 25 years. Declare it's fine until it explodes. On Tuesday, Evelyn was in Diane's office. Diane was all business, never looking up. Scarlet Vane, she stated. Yes? Heals. Evelyn said. She has a sister. Evelyn was floored. The sister apparently is a Boston paralegal who hates Scarlet for sleeping with her fiancé in 2019. The wedding was off, and they haven't spoken since, Heals, except for one 8-minute phone call 2 years ago. Heals. That call ended with the sister hanging up on her. Evelyn sat in shock. How do you know? Adrian has a woman who vines things, and she is very good. She began on Sunday. Evelyn absorbed this. What's the sister's name? Heals. Delia Vane, 30 years old. By all accounts, a decent person cast as the boring sister her whole life, while Scarlet got all the attention. And she is quietly enraged. She won't help for money. Heals. But she will help for a front row seat to see her sister's world burn. So what's our plan? Evelyn asked. Do I talk to her? No, Diane said. You write her a letter. Heals. A letter? Evelyn asked. Handwritten? Yes, on this exact paper. You will introduce yourself as Evelyn Marsh. You will state you are the wife of the man her sister has been sleeping with for 9 months. You will mention nothing of the business, the money, Heals, or of Adrian. You will ask her, as one woman publicly humiliated by Scarlet Vane to another, to meet for a coffee. Why coffee? Because coffee is a perfect test. A good person says yes. A corrupt person says no. If she agrees, Heals, it means she is ready to watch her sister fall from grace. Heals. If she refuses, it means she will protect her family, even a sister she loathes. And then we walk away. And if she agrees, Diane took off her glasses, her expression hardening into stone. Then you meet her. You do not lie to her, heels, and you find out what she knows about Scarlett's life that Scarlett has no idea she knows. Sisters know things, especially estranged sisters. Evelyn nodded slowly. Okay, one more thing, Diane added, and this is absolutely vital. Yes? Heels. If Delia gets nervous, if she makes even one excuse for Scarlett, you stop. You thank her for her time. You pay the check. Heels. You walk away. No forcing it. No arguing. We are not in the business of making people do things against their own will. Is that clear, Crystal? Write the letter tonight. Use your maiden name and this address. Delia Vane will have it by Thursday. Heels. Evelyn stood but stopped at the door. Diane, has Adrian asked about me? Diane's stare over her glasses was pure ice. Evelyn, I am a divorce lawyer, not a matchmaker. Write the letter. Evelyn almost laughed. She left. That night, Heels. She wrote the letter in a study Victor had built for her, a room he had never once stepped inside. Heels. She wrote by hand with blue ink on the heavy cream-colored paper from Diane. When she finished, she read it 3 times over. The letter was a masterpiece. It was not begging. It did not ask for pity or insult Scarlett. It simply said, I am the wife. Heels. My name is Evelyn. I know you have no reason to trust me. I am writing because I believe we are the only 2 people alive who have been ruined by the same woman. I would like to buy you a cup of coffee. You are not my enemy. You are perhaps, Heels, a cousin to my problem. Please consider it. Heels. She signed it Evelyn Marsh. She sealed it and went to the kitchen where Marguerite, the housekeeper, was cleaning. She asked quietly, Marguerite, could you mail this for me? Just not in the box at the end of our driveway. Heels. Marguerite didn't even look at the envelope. Of course, Mrs. Hart, thank you. Is it a difficult letter to send? It is an honest one. Marguerite nodded. Those are always the hardest, she said, returning to her work. 6 days later, Delia Vane replied. Heels. The letter came to post office box in a town Evelyn had never visited. Diane retrieved it, delivering it to Evelyn's car in a grocery store parking lot. Heels. Diane passed the letter through the window in a silent, brief exchange. Evelyn tore it open immediately. The note was short. It was from Delia, agreeing to coffee and vowing not to tell her sister. She gave an address, the Blue Kettle in Boston, Heels, and a time Tuesdays at 3. She offered a strange telling description. You will know me because I look like Scarlett, if Scarlett had ever eaten a hamburger. A genuine laugh escaped Evelyn, the first in weeks. Heels. The sound was so strange she glanced around, then drove home and began the hollow ritual of making dinner. Heels. When Victor came home, she played the part of the wife. A brief kiss, a question about his day. He spoke of some delay, a maritime deal, and she performed her listening, nodding at all the right moments. But behind the curtain of her eyes, Heels. One thought played on a loop. On Tuesday, I drive to Boston. The meeting was at the Blue Kettle, a small cafe with worn brick walls. Delia Vane was already there. She had Scarlett's features, Heels, but her face was etched with a warmth from a life truly lived, a kindness that felt earned from enjoying simple things. Heels. Evelyn took her seat. Their hands did not meet. You drove? Yes. It's a long way to come for a stranger. I know. Delia's eyes searched her face. You're prettier than I thought, she said. Scarlett told my husband you were a nothing. Good skin, she said. Heels. But no life in you. I've read the texts, a flinch. The smallest movement in Delia's posture. Oh, wow, okay. This is so much worse than I imagined. I am so sorry. For God's sake, don't be. You didn't write them. A waiter materialized. Heels. Delia ordered a black coffee. Evelyn a tea she would never drink. Music played into the space between them. Heels. Why did you write to me? The question finally broke the silence. Because I don't want to hurt you, Evelyn said, and I fear I am about to. Delia's fate became an unreadable mask. Continue. Your sister isn't just sleeping with my husband, Heels. She's a party to his business. She's now in a position to authorize financial transfers. Some of them are quite illegal. The details don't matter. What matters is that in 6 weeks, my husband's company will implode, Heels, and your sister will be in the center of the wreckage. I thought you should hear it from me, and not from the evening news, Heels. Delia didn't move. A statue of a woman. Will she go to prison? I don't know. Possibly. But if she's smart, unlikely. There will be questions she cannot answer. Her career in finance will be finished. But she isn't the main character in this tragedy. Heels. My husband is. Your sister, though, will not walk away clean. Delia stared into the grain of the table. Are you doing this? I am a part of it. Then why tell me? Evelyn took a slow breath. Because I saw you 6 weeks from now watching the news, Heels, seeing her face and having no one in this world to call, Heels. I have a mother who won't speak to me. I know what it is to watch your own family burn from a distance. I am not asking you to warn her. I'm not asking you to do a thing. I'm just telling you this so that when it all comes apart, you'll have had some warning, heels, not just the shock of a single moment. Delia was still. The waiter brought their drinks. She wrapped her hands around the mug as if the room were cold, but it wasn't. She called me once, she whispered. Last October, I didn't answer. Heels. She left a message about a married man who was going to leave his wife for her. She just needed someone to tell. Heels. She reached out, and I deleted the message. I never called her back. And that one action, it lives in my mind. It's the thing that keeps me staring at the ceiling at night. You don't owe her your loyalty. I know. That's not what this is about. Heels. This is about my own failure. I wanted to be the sister answers, not the one who hits delete. Evelyn said nothing. I'm sorry, she finally offered. Don't be, but I am. Delia swiped at an eye, furious with a tear. She drank her coffee. Heels. Nothing. That's a lie. Mostly. But there is one thing. Heels. In the next few weeks, your sister will do something reckless. When she figures out my husband is setting her up to take the fall, she'll panic. She might call someone. She might run. If she calls you, I don't want to know the details. Heels. I just need you to text me 2 words. She called. That's it. That's all I want. That's all. That's all. So what's in it for me? Evelyn just held her gaze. You get coffee with a woman who understands. You get a letter from me when it's done. Heels. Telling you how sorry I am. And you get to know you weren't the sister who ignored her a second time. Heels. A short, sharp laugh escaped Delia's lips. You're good, she said. You're really, really good. I wasn't always. I believe you, Delia said. You have the eyes of a woman who only just learned how to fight. Evelyn didn't answer, just sipped her tea, Heels, letting the heat sting her tongue. I'll do it, Delia said finally. The one text. I won't say your name. I won't warn her. She never warned me. I'm not a saint. Thank you. Don't. I'd already made up my mind before you got here. For the next 20 minutes, Heels, they spoke of anything but Scarlet, of jobs, of men, of getting a dog. Heels. Evelyn listened. When it was her turn to speak, she spun a lie about a garden she would never reading. They paid their bills separately. At the door, Delia stopped her. Evelyn. Yes. When this is all over, I hope you can sleep. Evelyn paused, truly considering it. I don't think I will. Good, Delia said. It means there's still a person left inside you. And just like that, she was gone. Evelyn watched her go, a figure in a gray coat, before turning to her own car. Heels. On the dark highway, driving back to a she was taking apart piece by piece, Evelyn gave herself 20 minutes to cry. She cried for Delia, going back to a silent apartment to think about a deleted message. She cried for a stranger in Lisbon, Heels, a sister forced to love a monster for 4 years. She cried for the 24-year-old girl in the wedding dress, so blind to the man standing beside her. She hadn't learned yet that monsters like Victor always wear the masks of decent men. Heels, it is their greatest, most cruel deception. Heels. She did not cry for the woman she was becoming. That woman had a job to do. When the weeping stopped, she pulled into a gas station and washed her face in a filthy bathroom. Her reflection in the mirror, under the hum of a dying fluorescent light, was brutal. Heels. Her eyes were red, her mouth set in a firm, hard line. She was not a woman who'd had a hard conversation. She was a woman who'd had a necessary one. She drove the rest of the way in silence. At home, a light burned in the study. Victor was waiting, worried. Heels. Maybe, but only like a banker worries about a bad investment. She killed the engine. Heels. She sat in the silent car, watching the lit window, seeing his shadow pass back and forth inside. A single thought formed like ice in her mind. You have 5 weeks left of this life, and you won't see the end of it coming. She got out and went into the house. Heels. As her keys hit the bowl, Victor called her name. She called back, her voice a perfect imitation of sweetness. I'm home. Upstairs, she washed her face a second time, scrubbing away the smell of the Boston Cafe, erasing a meeting he could never know about. Heels. She stood, towel pressed to her face, and heard his footsteps on the stairs. Heels. She heard him pause outside the bathroom door, as if waiting for a knock that never came. Then the footsteps continued toward their bedroom. It was a small change, but it was everything. He had never hesitated before. She hung up the towel, cut the light, Heels, and found him in bed, his face lit by the ghost light of his phone. The blue glow carved out his features, making him a stranger's mask. He put the phone down, offering a smile that didn't reach his eyes. How was Marcy? Heels. She'd invented a roommate he'd never question, because he never listened long enough to know Marcy wasn't real. Heels. She's fine, just Marcy. Still with that sculptor? Still with him. God help her, yes. She slipped into bed. He reached for her without turning his head, an automatic gesture, like fumbling for a remote. She endured it for a moment, heels, then turned away, murmuring she was tired. He accepted it without protest, his eyes already back on his phone. Lying with her back to him, she listened to the sounds of his thumbs on the screen, heels. She'd learned this new language, memorized the cadence of his typing. The distinct rhythm for Scarlett, shorter than his texts to his assistant and faster than those to his lawyer, heels. She had taught herself to hear the difference, to identify it in complete darkness, the way a mother knows her own child's cry. And tonight, it was the Scarlett rhythm. Evelyn closed her eyes, a vision of Delia in a gray coat flashing behind them, heels. A deleted message from 4 months ago recalled. She found sleep with a surprising quickness. It was not a restful sleep, but it was sleep, and for that she was grateful. The next morning, she drove into the city to see Diane, heels. But Diane already had company. A man named Adrian sat in a corner chair, reading an actual physical newspaper, heels. An actual newspaper made of paper, a relic from a forgotten world. He didn't look up when she entered, lost in the text. Only when he reached the end of a paragraph did he fold it with surgical precision, set it down, and stand. Miss Marsh. Evelyn. Just Evelyn. Heels. He didn't offer a hand, just a slight nod toward the chair across from Diane. Diane watched them both, her face a perfect blend of amusement and agony. Sit, Diane said. We have decisions to make. Evelyn sat. 3 things, Diane began. First, Boston was a win. Heels. Delia Vane is now a stable asset. We can use her. Heels. That's better than I expected. Well done. Thank you. Second, Adrian's team has been moving pieces around the board. I'll let him explain. All I know is that the day my firm asks how he does it is the day I no longer have a firm. Adrian's face was stone, heels, except for one eyebrow, which slowly rose. Diane exaggerates, he said. I haven't needed to be stern with her since 2017. You're stern with me monthly, Diane mumbled. You're just so polite about it. I forget. It's a skill. Adrian turned to Evelyn, heels. For the past 6 weeks, my people have been moving money to make it look like your husband was stealing it, heels. To be specific, funds he had no right to access. We didn't forge signatures or open accounts. We merely redirected money already moving through channels your husband thought were secure. When the right people see this paper trail, heels, your husband will look like he embezzled $41 million. Evelyn's composure didn't break. 41 million? 41. Whose money is it? Adrian held her gaze. Some is mine, he said. Some was mine before he stole it. Heels. The rest belongs to people who have agreed to help us in return for future favors. Heels. Their names don't matter. You just need to know that once the regulators review this file, it's over. He won't be able to talk his way out. Regulators? Yes, which is the third point. Adrian leaned closer. A woman at the commission, Priscilla Okafor, Heels, has been watching your husband's company for 2.5 years. He has no idea. She never had enough cause to make a move. Now she will. In about 3 weeks, a package will be delivered to her, an anonymous tip from a so-called disgruntled employee, Heels. She will realize it's something much, much bigger, Heels. And his girlfriend, Scarlett, won't doubt it, because the proof is perfect and she's wanted to bring down a man like Victor for years. She isn't an ally. Her goals just happen to align with ours right now. And Scarlett? Scarlett's name is on the evidence, Heels. Evelyn took this in. How much trouble will she be in? Enough to need a lawyer. Not enough for prison unless she behaves with incredible stupidity, which is always a risk. More likely, she's questioned, she cracks under the pressure, Heels, and she sacrifices your husband to save herself. She will then be banned from working in finance for the next 6 years. Evelyn stared at him. He met her stare. Heels. Diane watched them both, let out a sigh, and lifted her pen. Evelyn, she said, this is the part where, as your lawyer, I have to state the exact terms of your commitment and confirm your consent. I know what I'm doing. Say it for the record, Heels. Evelyn took a deep breath. My husband will be publicly destroyed. His company will be torn apart. His girlfriend's career will be burned to the ground. I will get the settlement from our prenup, and unofficially, a share of whatever Adrian gets back, Heels, sent through channels I will never ask about. Heels. My husband will know nothing of my role until the final night. That is the agreement. And you understand, Diane pressed, that there is no version of this where he comes out as anything but broken. I understand. And you still consent? I consent. Heels. Diane's pen made a clicking sound. Noted. Adrian, who had been watching Evelyn intently, finally glanced down. There is one last part, he said. Yes, the night, the ballroom, the end. Victor's spring gala, exactly. For 5 years, Heels. The Hale Capital Gala was Victor's kingdom. The one night he could gather the powerful people he wanted in his circle. Feels. Senators thinking about another campaign, a couple retired ambassadors, the head of a credit agency, even a novelist whose politics Victor hated, but whose fame he loved to show off. Feels. It was held every year in a midtown hotel ballroom his grandfather helped build in 1961. 800 people, black tie. Champagne that never stopped flowing. And Victor on a stage, Feels, lecturing about leadership, as if he had any idea what that meant. The date was April 11th, 32 days to go. You will walk into that room, Adrian instructed, with me. The doors open at 9:17 p.m., Feels. The precise moment my surveillance from the last 5 years shows your husband takes the stage, Feels. You will walk across the entire ballroom. You will stop right at the base of the stage. You will not be the first to speak. You will wait. He will speak. He will say something arrogant that he shouldn't, because men like that are predictable, Feels, and then you will say what needs to be said. In that moment, you will own that room. Recording was absorbing this party? Yes. You have recordings of Victor's galas? I have recordings of very many things. Why? Adrian paused, Feels. Because 3 years ago, one of my targets was on that guest list, and I had to know every conversation he had. Feels. I had no interest in your husband. He was just background noise. But in that noise, he said some things into that microphone that I later realized could be very useful. What did he say? Adrian's eyes locked with hers. You don't want to know. Yes, I do. Evelyn, Feels. Tell me. Adrian glanced over at Diane, who kept her eyes on her notes. He looked back at Evelyn. He told a joke, Adrian said, his voice controlled, about his wife. He said, my wife is the reason I come home early. She's also the reason I don't stay long. Feels. The whole room laughed. It's recorded. I will never let you hear it. I am telling you this only because you insisted, and because I'm trying to be honest with you. Feels. A heavy silence filled the space. Evelyn glanced down at her hands. The wedding band was already gone. She had taken it off 2 weeks ago, hidden it in a drawer. Victor hadn't noticed. Men like him see a new shade of lipstick, Feels, but never an empty space on a finger. She'd stopped being surprised by things like that years ago. Okay, continue. Adrian gave a sharp, certain nod. You will wait at the edge of the stage. He will see you. He will see me. For the first 3 seconds, Feels, his brain will not process it. Those 3 seconds belong to you. You must turn them into a weapon. How? You will smile. Evelyn almost laughed. I will smile, yes, Feels. Not at him, at the entire room. You will smile like you own the place, which in a sense you do, as I had your name discreetly added to the guest list this afternoon. My name is not on it. It's not necessary. Feels. Nobody at that door would ever dare question my presence. That's been dealt with. And when it's your moment, you will speak clearly. You will stick to the script. No improvising. Do not raise your voice. Real power will come from your quietness. Feels. When a room of that size goes silent, Evelyn, the quietest voice becomes the loudest. A lesson you must have learned after 7 years of staying silent while loud men took the floor. Feels. You will turn the silence he forced on you into your greatest weapon. Evelyn watched him for a long moment. Adrian? Yes, that was a surprisingly long sentence. It was. Are you giving a speech? The corner of his mouth twitched, the shadow of a smile. Feels. I am giving a briefing, he corrected. The speech is for the ballroom. Diane clicked her pen, cutting in. All right, Evelyn, go home. Kiss your husband. Lie to him for 32 more days. On April 11th, you will go to a suite I've booked at the Whitmore, Feels, at 3 p.m. sharp. A woman named Nezes will be there. She will do your hair, your makeup, and help with the dress we've already selected. Feels. Adrian will meet you in the lobby at 8:40. The car leaves at 8:45. You will be in that ballroom by 9:17. Is that understood? Between now and then, you have no contact with Adrian. You talk only to me, on our secure lines. Feels. You are done with Delia Vane. You will not be going to Boston. You will do nothing that makes anyone suspect you're a woman preparing for a war. You will act like a wife who is slowly starting to think her marriage might be okay. Understood? Feels. If your husband suggests another trip to the mountains, you go. I'm serious. Go smile. Let him hold your hand. It will just make his agony that much worse later. Feels. The more love he shows you in these 32 days, the more violent the shock will be when he remembers it all. Do you understand? Evelyn did. Yes. Good. Adrian stood, fastened his jacket, and gathered his papers from the table. Evelyn. Yes. Feels. If you change your mind before April 11th, my first offer from the gallery is still on the table. I know. I'm not pressuring you. I know. He studied her for a moment, And for the first time, she saw a trace of weariness in him, heels, like a man who just made a choice that could never be undone. Then it was gone. He nodded to Diane and left. When the door clicked shut, Diane took off her glasses and stared right at Evelyn. Heels. Diane's warning was a sharp interruption. Evelyn, she started, but Evelyn cut her off. Don't. Diane pushed, saying that this man does not make these kinds of offers. I've known him 9 years, she said. I have never seen this. The implication was clear, Heels. Evelyn's effect on him seemed intentional. If you're not, Diane cautioned, I'm warning you now before you figure it out 6 months too late. Evelyn's silence was its own kind of answer. Fine, Diane said. I've said what I needed to. Heels. The conversation ended with a tense thank you and Diane's last haunting thought. The ballroom is 32 days away. And those 32 days, she realized, were both an eternity and no time at all. For Evelyn, they were a kind of mental countdown, Heels. Her body knew the date, but her mind would forget until the truth would suddenly hit her over the sink or at the dry cleaners. Heels. The most vicious part was Victor's portrayal of a loving husband. This was a man who hadn't truly spoken to her in 7 years, now suddenly writing a story of renewed love after their trip. Flowers arrived on a Wednesday, Heels. He made a reservation at a restaurant she'd never even heard of. He even brought up having a baby again, a subject he'd rejected twice because the timing wasn't right. Now apparently the time was perfect. Her answer, let's see how spring feels, was a perfect piece of evasion. It was neither yes nor no, but Victor, in his fabricated hope, heard only what he wanted to hear, feels. Evelyn could map the architecture of his sudden warmth. Part of it was pure guilt, a frantic performance of the good husband to mask the terrible one. Part was professional dread. With his maritime deal sinking, Victor scurried home for comfort, only to find the climate there just as cold. But the main driver was his mistress Scarlett. Evelyn knew this from months of reading his texts, a grim surveillance that became her private opera. And lately, the plot had taken a turn. Around February, Scarlett had stopped calling him baby in her messages. Scarlett's texts were now fixated on the wife. When are you telling her? You promised by Christmas. Victor's replies were a study in evasion, vast silences broken by desperate paragraphs pleading with her not to go. The truth was slowly dawning on Scarlett. She was seeing that the marriage she sought to destroy was, for men like Victor, a cornerstone. Men of his class don't leave their wives. They install them in fine houses like trophies, visit mistresses on a schedule, and expect both women to quietly accept the terms. And Scarlett was nearing her breaking point. One March morning at 4 a.m., Evelyn photographed an ultimatum on Victor's screen. If you don't do it by summer, I'm out. His reply was a desperate plea. Baby, not summer, by June. I promise. I'm working on something. Evelyn read that last phrase again. I'm working on something with a terrible clarity. She'd seen the documents in his office, the quiet, methodical transfer of funds. It was a clear pattern. He was building his escape hatch. His plan was so transparently pathetic. He would wait until after the spring gala for one last, says the king. Then he would give the tired speech about growing apart, offer her a beach house and some cash as assumed she would accept it without a word. Because to him, she was an object subject, a piece of furniture, and furniture does not complain. But as Evelyn lay there, lit by the glow of his phone, a single cold thought took root. You only beat me to it, Victor. Your plan to leave me started 2 weeks ago. My plan to leave you started 8 months ago. And I will beat you to the door by 3 weeks. She put his phone back and had the most peaceful sleep she'd had in a year. Then, on April 2nd, the fragile quiet shattered. In a grocery store, holding lemons, her burner phone buzzed. A gift from Diane. It had one contact, D. It was Delia, Scarlett's sister. She called me.
Evelyn stood perfectly still.
An hour ago, Delia said.
I left a voicemail.
I haven't listened. You don't have to. You don't owe me anything more. But Delia had listened. She was crying, she said, her voice strained. I've never heard her cry like that. In the message, Scarlett's words tumbled out. She'd done something stupid. She needed a lawyer. She was sure Victor would throw her under the bus. She spoke of him as if he were already a ghost. Evelyn walked to a quiet corner, pretending to study a birthday card with a dog on it. Did she say anything else? She asked. Meet said she was sorry. Not to me, Delia replied. To our mother. Scarlett was consumed by the humiliation it would cause her mother, even planning a trip to New York before it all collapsed. Don't tell I confessed to Evelyn. I'm telling you. That was our deal. Sorry. Then came the urgent question. Evelyn, are you going to stop it? Evelyn's gaze was fixed on the cartoon dog in its little party hat. "Stop what?" she asked, her voice cool. "She's going to break. Do something no one can fix. I can hear it. I'm her sister." Heels. "I can hear it in your voice too," Delia pressed. "I'm not asking you to save her. I'm asking if you understand what you are allowing to happen." Evelyn closed her eyes. An image of Scarlett at a party flashed. Then the endless texts, Heels, and the expectation for women like her to be silent fixtures. Then she saw the $41 million trail of money, a trap built for the person who signed. And Scarlett signed everything, believing she was a partner when she was only a tool, Heels. She was never his partner, she was just his pen. "Delia," Evelyn began, "your sister is not a good person." "I know," she replied, "but she's still a person, and she does not deserve to die for it." Heels. "So I'm telling you this one time," Evelyn said. "If she goes to New York this weekend, stays at your mother's from Sunday night to Monday morning, a woman named Priscilla Okafor will not be able to find her." Heels. "It will buy your sister 12 hours to hire a lawyer before her life implodes. That's all I can offer. Tell her to go to New York today." After a silence, Delia asked, 12 hours? Heels. 12 hours is the difference between a public defender and a connected one. This is the last thing I will ever ask of you. After this, we are strangers. Heels. "You never knew me," Evelyn finished. "You won't even know my name when you read about what's going to happen." Delia understood, and the call ended. Evelyn stood there holding the burner phone and just breathed. She slipped it in her pocket, Heels, bought the lemons, olive oil, garlic, and a bottle of wine Victor liked. She drove home. She cooked dinner. Victor came back at 6:30. At the table, he grumbled about concerning irregularities at work, laughing it off, Heels. But then he poured a triple scotch, a sure sign of his panic, Heels. He disappeared into his study. Evelyn heard his voice rise once, then fall to a murmur, the distinct sound of a man realizing the person on the other end of the line holds all the cards. She did the dishes, looking out at the dark yard, thinking of Scarlett Vane. In a few days, Scarlett would get on a train, completely unaware that her sister's call had just bought her a meeting with a top-tier lawyer on a Monday night. Heels. It was the only mercy Evelyn had allowed herself in 8 months of careful planning, and she didn't know how she was meant to feel about it. She went upstairs. Victor's voice, small and weary, could be heard through the study door. Heels. She walked past without stopping. In the bedroom, she sat on the bed. 9 days left. She took her wedding ring from the nightstand. The diamond was his grandmother's, given to her on a terrace in Florence. She had cried then, Heels, but the memory now felt distant, like a scene from a movie she'd barely seen. Heels. She slipped the ring back on her finger. For the next 9 days, she wanted Victor to see it there, a constant reminder of his safety. The more secure he felt in this moment, the more devastating the impact would be. She turned off the lamp and lay in the dark. Victor came to bed 40 minutes later, of scotch. He said nothing and fell asleep instantly. His breathing settled. The old house groaned. And outside, something small and fast moved across the lawn, vanishing into the night. Heels. Evelyn couldn't sleep for hours. She lay in the dark, the ring a cold pressure on her finger, her husband breathing beside her, her mind on the ballroom 9 days from now. She saw Scarlett Vane weeping on the phone. She heard Adrian Volkov's promise, Heels. "I am trying very hard, Evelyn, to be a person who does not lie to you." At 4:17 in the morning, sleep finally came, under muchless blackness. Then at 6:40, Victor's alarm went off. Evelyn stared at the ceiling she'd known for 7 years, Heels, and understood this was one of the last times she would ever see it, Heels. 9 days bled into 8, 8 into 5, 5 into 2. She was counting down something she couldn't stop and had no wish to. She moved with the cold precision of a person crossing a frozen lake, sure the ice would hold because the other side was already set. In that final week, Victor became strange, not suspicious. In 7 years, he'd never once suspected she had thoughts of her own. He never gave her that credit. No, he became something much more dangerous for him and much more useful for her. Heels. He became needy. He was suddenly home by 5:30, then 6, then 5. He sat on the kitchen counter as she chopped vegetables, asking small questions he hadn't asked in years. He even mentioned their honeymoon, the olive grove, the old man with figs. She remembered. She told him that she did, and she gave him the smile she had practiced for 8 months in the mirror, the one that used only her mouth and never her eyes. And Victor, who never really looked at her eyes, saw nothing. Heels. Wednesday, 2 days before the gala, he finds her laying out a pale blue dress he knows she hates, a gift from his mother. Is that what you're wearing Friday? Yes. Sweetheart, maybe wear the gold Valentino. Don't like this one? I love it. I just like the gold one more. Friday is a big night. I want you beside me, looking your absolute best. He waited for her answer. Okay, Victor. The gold one. He kissed the top of her head. Heels. He told her he loved her and then left. She stood there looking at the blue dress. She picked it up, folded it, and hung the gold one where Victor would see it in the morning. Of course, she was not wearing the gold one. Her dress for Friday was chosen 11 weeks ago. It was waiting at the Whitmore Hotel, and nobody here would see it until she walked into that ballroom at 9:17. She wasn't angry that he told her what to wear. Heels. She was, in some cold, clinical corner of her mind, grateful. It was another piece of evidence for a future self who might doubt this choice. A man 2 days from his complete ruin, instructing her on how to style his own destruction. Heels. She filed the memory away. Thursday night, Victor came home near 11. He was drunk, not the stumbling kind, but a polished drunk, built on 3 scotches that were pretending to be 2. He found her in the library. As he stood framed in the doorway, Heels. Evelyn, an expert in the geography of his face, saw something new, a flicker of terror. Heels. He was a man looking at his wife for one brief, suspended moment, asking a question he was too terrified to book. You're home. Yeah, how was dinner? Fine. You don't look fine? He entered, sinking heavily onto a chair's arm, rubbing his face. Maritime's a disaster, he mumbled. They're renegotiating, acting like somebody's been feeding them information. Like what? Nothing. Nothing. It's nothing. Just noise. Victor, it's nothing, Evelyn. Drop it. Okay. He lowered his hands. Heels. He studied her, and in the lamplight he looked older than his 43 years. She saw new shadows beneath his eyes. He hadn't shaved, his mouth was set in that hard line she knew so well, the expression of a man refusing to permit his own thoughts to escape. Evelyn. Yes, are we okay? She just watched him. An eternity seemed to pass as a muscle jumped in his jaw, his fingers digging into the chair. We're fine, Victor. You'd tell me. Yes. If something was wrong, you would tell me. Yes. Okay. Okay. Heels. His eyes held hers for one beat more. He nodded once, a gesture for himself, not for her, then turned and walked out of the library. She heard his ascent up the stairs. She heard his footsteps pause at their bedroom door, Heels, then proceed down the hall to his study. The click of the door closing, the turn of the lock, and Evelyn just sat there, he almost asked. He came so close to asking the only real question. She saw it form in his throat, and she watched him choke it back down, Heels. Because to ask is to accept that the answer might be no. And Victor never accepted a woman could say no. Heels. In 7 years of marriage, it was the closest he had ever come to actually seeing her. And sitting there, she felt a sick, small wave of something like pity. The feeling you get when you see a cruel person and realize they are also profoundly afraid. Heels. And you have to set that feeling down because it is impossible to carry. She put it down. She went upstairs, and for the first time, she slept in the guest room. She told Marguerite she had a headache. When Victor came for coffee, he said nothing. Heels. He simply kissed her cheek and said he'd see her tomorrow night at the gala. Heels. He left for the office. She watched his car disappear and thought, the next time you see me, your entire world will detonate in less than 60 seconds. On Friday morning, Evelyn packed one small bag, a change of clothes, her passport, Heels, renewed in her maiden name, a passport Victor did not know existed. 2 photographs, one of her mother, one of a dog named Polly, and a sealed letter written to herself 8 months prior, a toothbrush. That was all. For weeks, Heels, she had been moving everything that truly mattered out of the house, piece by piece, emptying a home around a husband who never saw a thing. Heels. A silver hairbrush that belonged to her grandmother, a small painting of the ocean, a ring from her 6th birthday. It was all waiting in a Connecticut safety deposit box under the name Evelyn Marsh. The bag was merely a prop for the final act. Victor came home for lunch without warning, so she delivered her alibi, heading to the city at 3 o'clock for her hair and nails. She explained she had booked a room at the Whitmore, so she could get ready without a rush. Heels. She told him she'd meet him in the ballroom at 9. He was distracted, his phone buzzing, and simply said, Fine, sure, yeah, I'll see you there. He kissed her forehead, retreated to his study, and she picked up her bag and her keys. Heels. She walked out of the house on Ashbury Lane, and she did not look back. She drove. She did not cry. She did not turn on the radio. She drove 5 miles an hour over the speed limit and saw that the trees on the highway finally had leaves. Feels. Spring had arrived while she was lost inside her plot, and she thought, I have survived an entire winter inside this plan. Feels. She reached the Whitmore at 2:40. The concierge knew her, making check-in seamless. A bellhop carried her bag to a floor reserved under Diane's name. When she opened the door, a woman was already inside, arranging brushes. Miss Marsh. Eanes. They shook hands. Eanes was around 50, dark hair in a bun, no makeup. Her face was not warm, it was sharp. Diane had hired her for a gala 2 years ago, a detail that now surfaced in Evelyn's memory. Heels. Hair first, Ines commanded, then makeup. We have all the time in the world. Would you like tea? Yes. She drank it. Evelyn sat at the vanity, closed her hours. She let Ines work. She did not speak. It felt unreal, caught between a dream and a nightmare. Her body was just a shell in a chair. Her mind was already in that ballroom, rehearsing her entrance. When Ines finally spun her to the mirror, Evelyn stared at a complete stranger for 3 full seconds. Heels. This was utterly different, softer. It was low on her neck, with loose strands framing her face in a way that seemed almost accidental. The makeup was not the heavy contour Victor always insisted on. Her eyes looked huge. Heels. Her mouth was a deep brownish red she hadn't worn in a decade. It was matte. It was hostile. She looked like her real self. The version of her at 22, before she learned to perform the role of the soft, distracted wife at dinner parties. She looked, heels, she realized with a jolt, like Evelyn Marsh. Heels. It was black and it was floor length. It didn't cling but followed the line of her body. It had a high neck, long sleeves, and a back that was cut so low it almost reached her spine. Heels. This was the absolute opposite of every dress Victor had ever made her wear. He liked her in bright jewel tones, emerald, sapphire, a garish red he called Christmas. This dress was not a holiday. This dress was not asking for a husband's permission. Heels. This was a dress made to force an entire room to stop and stare. As Evelyn stepped into it and he zipped it up, she heard a click and thought, that's it. Heels. That's the sound of the beginning. Eanes then secured a necklace at her throat, a single chain with one dark stone, a statement of austerity. No earrings, no bracelets. At 5'10", heels, her wedding ring was removed and placed into a small black box that Ines offered in silence. Evelyn snapped the lid shut without looking, handed it back, and Ines made it vanish. Diane will return this on Monday if you want it. I don't. Figured. Heels. I'll tell her. Meanwhile, the phone Victor knew had been vibrating in her purse for 40 minutes, a desperate pulse she simply ignored. At 5:20, she finally looked. 6 messages. Where are you? I'm at the hotel. Heels. Evelyn, I'm at the ballroom. They're doing sound check. Sweetheart, are you coming? Evelyn, call me. I'm starting to worry. Please pick up. She merely observed the glowing screen. For a moment, she was an archivist studying relics. Heels. Reading the words of a man she no longer recognized. The phone was placed face down on the dresser. She went to the bathroom, washing her hands, cleansing herself of more than cold tea. Returning, she typed 3 simple words. I'm on my way. Heels. Then the phone was powered down, sealed in a drawer, and abandoned like the life it represented. Heels. At 8:40, she descended in the elevator. The Whitmore's lobby was performing its Friday night ritual. Low lights, piano music, manufactured joy. Evelyn moved through the scene like a ghost through a gallery. Heels. Her purpose too immense for casual distraction. She did not look left or right. Her instructions were explicit. Do not look for Adrian. She walked straight to the revolving door and passed through its glass chamber. When she emerged on the other side, heels. Adrian was there. He was in a black tuxedo without a tie. His white shirt was open at the collar, mirroring their first meeting. Only this one was new, sharp, and perfect. Heels. His hair was still damp, suggesting a recent deliberate preparation. He held a long coat over his arm, not wearing it. He watched her approach in total silence before speaking her name, Evelyn. Adrian. You look. Don't. He almost smiled. Heels. I wasn't going to say beautiful. Good. I was going to say ready. I'm ready. A long black sedan idled at the curb, an anonymous car built for discretion, not for spectacle. A man she didn't know opened the rear door. Evelyn got in. Heels. Adrian followed, and the world outside became a blur of city lights through dark glass. Heels. For 3 minutes, the silence was absolute. At a red light, he turned and studied her profile. As the car moved again, he said quietly, There's one element I didn't tell you about tonight. Regarding tonight? Out with it. Heels. Scarlet Vane is not going to be there. Evelyn's head snapped around. Where is she? She flew to New York on Tuesday. Last night, she hired a lawyer. This morning at 9, her counsel called Priscilla Okafor to arrange a meeting. Eels. That meeting is happening now. She is not attending. By now, your husband has surely realized she is gone. Eels. He would send a flood of texts into an empty void. By the time they landed, he'd be nearing panic, but he would stay at that microphone. Victor Hill is not a man who cancels on 800 people over a bad feeling. Evelyn was silent for a moment. Adrian. Eels. Yes. How did you know she'd hire a lawyer last night? He paused. I didn't. It was a projection based on a call she made to her sister last week. Evelyn just stared. You know about Delia. Diane gives me mission-critical intelligence, Evelyn. Eels. I knew what you told her. I knew you did something I would never have approved of, and by pure chance, it made our timing perfect. Eels. So I said nothing. Why? He looked toward the window. Because, he said, you did it so another woman wouldn't have to pay for Victor's crimes, and I wouldn't be the man to stop that. I let it unfold. I told Priscilla to wait a day before she saw Scarlet. Eels. That's how the 12 hours you bought became 24. You weren't her only savior. We were. Why make Priscilla wait? He was quiet. Because you're the kind of person who gives a woman 12 hours, he finally said. Eels. And I wanted to be the kind of person who could stand in a room with you. The car turned onto Madison. The hotel was just 3 blocks away. Eels. Evelyn looked right at him. Adrian. I'm not a good person. Neither am. I'm doing this because I want to see him hurt. I'm not anyone's hero, I know. It is vital that you know that. I do. Good. She turned to the window as the car slowed. Eels. She watched the line of black cars, the figures in tuxedos and furs, the photographers pushing against velvet ropes, their flashes like sign strikes of lightning. It was 8:58. Adrian. Yes. When we're inside, go on. You will not take my hand. Eels. You will not touch my back. You will not even look at me. You walk beside me, half a step behind, to my left. For 7 years, that room learned to see a woman on a man's arm. I will not be seen on anyone's arm. Eels. I need them to see me walk in alone. You are the event that makes the room go quiet. I am the reason it stays that way. He was silent for a second, then simply, understood. The car came to a stop. Evelyn opened her own door. Eels. She stepped out onto the pavement, the cool April air a sudden shock on her skin. She could hear the muffled sounds from inside the ballroom, a speaker's voice, the deep hum of 800 people. Adrian came around the car. He didn't touch her. Eels. He fell into place, just as she'd instructed, and they started their walk. The photographers, knowing nothing of who she was, raised their cameras all the same. A woman in that dress, with that presence, is a shot you take on pure instinct. Eels. They crossed the lobby. A man in a suit with an earpiece, clearly waiting for them, fell into step beside them, leading them to the ballroom. At the doors, he stopped and looked at Adrian, who gave a small nod. Evelyn could now hear her husband's voice, Eels, in the middle of his speech. It was the exact same one he gave every year. She'd heard it 6 times. She knew every rhythm, every single applause line. She could have recited it right along with him. And in a year that on paper should have destroyed us, Eels, we didn't just survive, we built. We built together. Because Hale Capital is not a company, it's a family. Eels. And a family is what walks through fire together. Evelyn drew a deep breath. She looked at the giant doors, then she looked to Adrian. His face was a mask of stone, his eyes locked right on hers. He stayed silent, following her orders. Eels. She turned her gaze back to the doors. The man with the earpiece put his hand on the handle and waited. Inside, Victor was getting to the part that always got a cheap laugh. The story about his grandfather's taxi. Evelyn waited, her timing flawless. Eels. And as the wave of laughter rolled through the doors, she gave a single sharp nod. The man pulled the doors open. Eels. The ballroom doors swing wide, revealing a scene of impossible wealth beneath crystal chandeliers. On stage, Victor is caught mid-law, the perfect image of a man certain of his power. Then Evelyn enters. One step and another. A gossip columnist spots her first. The woman's jaw literally unhinges. She jabs her neighbor, her eyes fixed on Evelyn's slow approach, like a predator that has just spotted its kill. Eels. The man she nudged looks up, his chewing stops. And just like that, the silence begins to spread. It moves across the room, murdering conversations as it goes. A man near the stage freezes, his glass halfway to his mouth. At table 14, Eels. 2 wives share a knowing look that speaks a brutal truth. The show is officially over. Then somebody notices the man walking behind Evelyn, and that person stands, not dramatically, Eels, but with the pure reflex of someone feeling a shift in the laws of physics. On stage, Victor is still laughing, gloriously unaware. Eels. He feels the effect before he understands the cause. First, he notices he's laughing by himself. Second, the entire room is staring right past him. He sees a woman with a hand covering her mouth in pure shock. His smile still fixed on his face. He turns to follow their gaze, and then he sees her. Evelyn, walking right toward him, a black dress cutting through the room's glitter. Her expression is perfectly blank, not happy, not angry. She moves with the detached calm of someone there to collect a forgotten coat. Victor's smile doesn't just fall. It shatters, freezing on his face into a twisted mask of confusion. His mouth opens, then closes, then open sound comes out. Then he sees Adrian. It takes him a fraction of a second longer to place the face, because Adrian is not a colleague. Adrian is a phantom from a part of the city that doesn't matter. But Victor Hale's empire was built on a cruel memory for faces. The connection clicks into place. He remembers it now. A handshake in a gilded restaurant 3 years ago when Adrian Volkov was pointed out to him with a grim warning. That's the one man you never ever cross. Don't partner with him. Don't compete with him. If he shows up in your world, you leave. The name finally registers. She can see it on his face, Adrian Volkov, a name that lands like a second punch. His knuckles turn white on the podium. She stops at the foot of the stage. She says nothing, just looks up at him and waits. The ballroom is completely silent. 800 people, making absolutely no sound. The silence is so deep you can hear the ice shifting in a glass. And the small click of crystal on wood sounds like a gunshot. Victor has to speak first. Adrian said he would. Men like Victor cannot stand the silence, and so he breaks. Evelyn, a whisper, but the microphone makes it a roar. Then louder, he forces a bright, fake tone. Sweetheart, you're late. Still nothing but silence. It feels like no one is even breathing. Evelyn looks up, hands clasped, and speaks. Her voice is soft, exactly as Adrian coached her. Because in a silent room, the quietest voice is the one that makes everybody listen. Victor. Yes, honey, I need you to do something for me. Anything, sweetheart. She lets his word, sweetheart, just hang in the air. She lets the room feel the lie coiled inside it. Then she says, still quiet, still controlled, I need you to step away from the microphone. Victor lets out a horrible, panicked laugh, the sound of a man's completely lost the script. Evelyn. Step away, Victor. Honey, this is step away from the microphone. He doesn't move, but his hands drop from the podium, which suddenly looks like the only thing that was holding him upright. Evelyn takes Huck's last step forward. She's at the front. Every single eye in that ballroom is now locked on her. She can feel Adrian somewhere behind her, a quiet force she does not turn to see. This moment isn't his. Not yet. She looks up at her husband. Everyone in this room, she says, is about to learn something. I am going to tell them. I would rather they hear it from me than on the morning news. You can correct me if I miss any of the details. Victor's mouth opens, but not a sound comes out. And Evelyn Hart, the woman he ignored for 7 years, began. My name, she said, is Evelyn Marsh. For 7 years, I was Evelyn Hart. As of 4:15 this afternoon, I am not. There isn't a single sound from the crowd. Victor's face is a perfect mask, but his hand drifts toward his pocket, his tell when a deal is collapsing, and he's desperate to hide it. The divorce, she said, was filed back in December. Finalized this week, my Diane Kessler. A few people in the room actually flinch. That is a name no one ever wants to hear. A man whispers to his wife, and she slams a hand on the table, a sharp, silent order to be quiet. I did not want our divorce to be a public spectacle. I wanted it to be private. She looks straight at Victor. You'll notice I am not asking for your permission to explain this, Victor. That is a new development for me. His jaw tightens. Evelyn. We don't have to do this here. We are doing it here. Sweetheart. Do not call me sweetheart again tonight, Victor. Not in this room. Not ever again. That word is now finished between us. She didn't raise her voice. She just stated it. Like turning off a light. And the word between them was gone. Victor just stood there, speechless. Second, Evelyn said, earlier today, the Financial Regulatory Commission got a package of documents about Hale Capital Partners. The papers detail about $41 million in fraud tied to several shell companies. They're also talking to a former employee of yours who decided to cooperate. I think you know who that is. For the first time, Victor's composure completely shatters. His face goes slack. His jaw just hangs open. A muscle twitching under his eye before he can force it shut. His hand flies back to the podium. He has to hold on to something. Model. You're going to be questioned, Evelyn said. Maybe tomorrow, I'm not sure. But I know the questions they'll ask for everyone here in business with him. Listen, any contract you have with Hale Capital is now with a man facing years of explaining where $41 million vanished. Some of you are already planning the calls to cut him loose tonight. I don't judge you. I do the same. A chair scrapes wood in the back. Someone is leaving. No one turns to see who it is. Heels. Third, she said. Victor begged. Evelyn, stop. Third, the Ashbury Lane house was bought through a trust. Our divorce dissolves that trust. The house is mine, and I'm selling it. It's of no use to me. If anyone needs a 22-room home with beautiful light, my lawyer will be taking calls Monday. A muffled, strangled laugh cuts through the crowd. It's quickly silenced, but the spell was broken. The room was no longer one thing. They were 800 people, once Victor's guests, now her captive audience. Feels. And then she lands the final blow. The apartment, the cars, the art, his entire stake in Hale Capital Partners. It's all his. She states this plainly for the press, to prevent any twisting of the truth. She isn't taking his company, Feels. His company is abandoning him because of choices he made, choices that had nothing to do with her at all. She looks at him, and for the first time in 7 years, his face is a mask she's never seen before. It isn't anger. It isn't grief, Feels. It's the look of a man realizing the ground he stood on was never real. It was a rug, Feels, and it was just pulled out from under him. He says nothing. He can't. She moves in for the kill. This last part, Victor, is for you alone. For 7 years, we shared a life, and you never saw me. You never knew my coffee was black, Feels. You never knew my maiden name was Marsh. You never knew I stopped wearing perfume in January, or that I had cracked your safe 47 times since August. You knew nothing, because you saw me as just another beautiful thing you owned, Feels, and so you stopped looking. That was your greatest mistake, Feels. Not the worst thing you did, but the seed of all this. It's why you are standing there, a complete and utter fool. A man who pays attention to his wife sees who she's becoming. A man who doesn't finds out in a room of 800 people that she became someone else entirely a long, long time ago. Her voice is ice. I'm not angry, Victor. I was, for maybe 45 minutes on Tuesday in October. Then I became something else. I've been busy these last few months. I'm not angry. I feel absolutely nothing for you. Feels. That is what I want you to remember. Not my rage, just my absence, my nothing. You are nothing to me, and you haven't been for a very long time, in a voice you can't silence anymore. She holds his gaze for a final second, then whispers, "Goodbye, Victor." She turns and walks straight down the center of the ballroom, past stunned faces, past a columnist with a slack jaw, past motionless waiters, white tables, and the ghosts of 100 other parties. Feels. Adrian Volkov walks just behind her, a silent shadow who never makes contact. Everyone there would later swear he never said a word. At the doors, she speaks to the air itself. The catering is paid through 11. Please, enjoy the party, it's a beautiful room. And with that, she is gone. The doors close. For 3 long seconds, the ballroom is utterly silent, the kind of quiet that precedes chaos. Then one woman at a back table rises, grabs her purse, and flees. Heels. Then a man near the front. Then 3 more. In less than 4 minutes, the room is emptying, like a party dying after a terrible unspoken event. Victor Hale stays at the podium, watching it all. He is motionless. A waiter later said he stood there for nearly 15 minutes, hand flat on the wood, watching the exodus, watching his staff avoid his eyes, watching the lights come up on a kingdom that, just an hour before, was his. When he finally moves, he walks off the stage, past the bar and the coat check. Feels. He leaves through a side door onto Madison Avenue, around 10 o'clock on a Friday night. He stands on the sidewalk in a tuxedo, no coat, his phone silent in his pocket. He doesn't take it out. There's no one left to call. Evelyn doesn't go back to the hotel. Stopping at a brownstone she has never seen, Adrian gets out, opens her door. No hand offered. She had instructed him not to. He leads her up 3 stone steps and steps aside. Unlocks the door and steps aside. The entryway is warm. Feels. A small table holds a lamp, a single vase. It smells neither masculine nor feminine. It smells clean, like it was just aired out. She stands in her black dress, feeling like an intruder. This is mine, he says. I have 3. I chose this one for its quiet. I thought you would want quiet. Yes. There's a room upstairs, second on the left. We are alone in the house. There's food in the kitchen, if you are hungry. Tea. Or a bottle of something very old, if you prefer. Feels. Or nothing. You don't have to eat or speak. I'll be in the back room on this floor as long as you are awake. You know where I am if you need me. Otherwise, I will see you in the morning. Evelyn hesitates, then asks, Adrian? Yes. Why here? Not a hotel, feels. He just looks at her. Because he says, when a woman goes through what you just have, she doesn't deserve to end the night in a hotel with a mint on the pillow. Tonight is not a night for a mint. I've learned that after certain nights, feels, a person needs a real house, not a room cleaned by strangers. Feels. This is a house. It has stood for 110 years, and it has seen nights far worse than this one. I thought you might find some comfort in that. Evelyn just stares at him. Adrian? Yes. I'm not going to sleep with you. Feels. His expression flickers with an offense he instantly kills. Evelyn, I didn't ask you to, I know. I brought you to a home with a guest room because I thought you would need one. I never brought you here expecting you to get into my bed. Feels. If you wanted the Whitmore, that is where we would be right now. Feels. If you want to go to the Whitmore this instant, I will take you there. The car is downstairs. She studies his face for a long moment. I'm sorry. Don't be. I'm sorry anyway, Evelyn. It's 1:20 in the morning. Go upstairs. You'll find a robe on the door. Feels. Toothpaste in the drawer. I had a kettle brought to the room in case you wanted tea alone. That was the extent of my plan. I planned nothing else. Go upstairs. A laugh almost escapes her, but catches in her throat. She goes. The room is simple. A bed, a lamp, feels, a window, the kettle, and robe, as he said. Feels. She stands in the center of the room, still in her revenge dress, then slowly removes it, hanging it carefully. She puts on the robe and sits on the bed's edge. There are no tears. She expected them. The body, it seems, has its own rules. She planned to cry in the car, but didn't. Planned to cry on the stairs, but nothing. She just sits, wrapped in a robe that smells like cedar, waiting for tears that won't come. Instead, she feels a sudden, sharp pang of hunger. Feels. She hadn't eaten since lunch with no appetite then. Now she's starving with the clean hunger that comes after a long run. A purely physical need, separate from the chaos in her head. She goes downstairs. Adrian is in the kitchen, ripping bread from a loaf with his bare hands. An act she couldn't have imagined. Beside him, a plate of cheese, olives, and tomatoes. He looks up as she enters, not at all surprised. I thought you might come down. I'm hungry. I know. How? I've had nights like this. Not exactly like this. Feels. But close enough. I know what a body needs at 1:30 for holding a secret for 8 months. He nudges the plate to her. She stands at the tomato, then an olive. He pours her a glass of water, and she drinks it all. He pours another. She drains that one too. They exist in silence. The kitchen is quiet, just the tick of a clock and the fridge's hum. A car's headlights sweep the room and are gone, Adrian. Yes, I need to ask you something. Feels. Yes, and I need your complete honesty. All right, why did you really delay Priscilla for that extra day? Not the reason you gave me in the car. He leans against the counter, arms crossed. He looks at the floor for a moment, feels, as if finding the words for the very first time. Because, he says, I grew up in a town where a woman named Vera lived 3 doors down from my mother. Vera's husband beat her. Everyone knew. Nobody did anything. One winter, feels, he beat her so badly the doctors said she would never walk again. But she did, feels. It took her 3 years, and she walked with a cane for the rest of her life. My mother brought her bread, just bread, twice a week. She told me, Adrian, I am not a strong woman. I can do bread. But bread twice a week is something Vera can count on. And that is not nothing. He paused. Vera died when I was 19. Her husband, 4 years later. I was already here by then, and I didn't go back for the funeral. But I never forgot the bread. Twice a week. Dot model. Feels. My mother was no hero. She couldn't save anyone. All she had was bread. But that bread was everything. He finally met her eyes. Scarlet Vane is no innocent, he said. She made a choice with a married man, and she helped him launder his money. Feels. I have no sentiment for her. But when you told Delia to send her to New York, you gave the woman bread. A 12-hour head start. It cost you nothing, and it might have saved her from a terrible end. At the very least, a 5 a.m. lawyer. Feels. I delayed Priscilla because you gave her bread. And just once, I wanted to be the man who lets bread do its work. He went still. Evelyn remained silent. Feels. Adrian? Yes. You are a very strange man, I know. You move fortunes for other people. You know men who simply vanish. You own 3 houses, and you just told me a story about bread. Yes. All those things exist at once. They do. I don't understand you. Feels. You don't have to. I would like to. He held her gaze, unwavering. Then we have time, he said. I'm not going anywhere. The business is done. You are free. And for the first time in 9 years, I am not finishing a fight. If you want to understand me, feels, take all the time you need, she almost answered, but the words caught in her throat. Feels. She set the last olive in her mouth, chewing with quiet deliberation. Adrian? Yes, thank you for the bread. A shadow of a smile touched his lips. You're welcome, Miss Marsh. 7 months later, Feels. Sheikah Wong and Hale Capital were just ghosts on defunct letterhead. The case Priscilla Okafor opened had shattered into 2 more. Victor was indicted in June on 17 counts. He took a plea in August. His lawyer was direct. Feels. A trial is 10 years of your life. A plea is 4 years, and your name. He chose the 4 years. She cooperated. She testified. Feels. In the end, she never saw a prison cell, just as Diane had predicted. She left the city, went back home, and took a bookkeeping job where no one knew her story. That summer, her sister Delia finally took her call, and they talked for 19 minutes. Feels. Delia wrote to Evelyn that October. The letter said, she doesn't know it was you or me. She believes we saved her because we are family. Let her think that. It's making her a better person. But Evelyn never wrote back. Feels. She had promised Delia that night that they were finished. Feels. She was not a woman who broke a promise. She kept the letter, slipping it into a drawer in the brownstone she would one day call home. She didn't move in right away. For 7 weeks, she stayed in the guest room. Then, in early June, Feels. She asked Adrian if a room existed that was not for guests but was also not his. He told her of an old study. That afternoon, she announced she wanted it. Without glancing up from his paper, he just said, the desk by the window has a good chair. Feels. My son picked it, so it's better than it looks. And with that, it was settled. She eventually married him. A small thing before a clerk on a Thursday. Diane was a witness. Marguerite came in from the country, and Marguerite cried. Feels. She was the only one in the room who did. Evelyn sat her in the chair next to Adrian's. After they took Marguerite to a restaurant she had dreamed of for 30 years but never entered. Evelyn paid. It wasn't a grand affair. No designer dress, Feels, no 800 people in a ballroom. Evelyn had already lived the white dress and ballroom at 24. She had no need for an echo of it. She thought of Victor sometimes in the years that followed, but not often, and then less, until, Feels, in his 2nd year a letter arrived from a federal prison. Feels. Diane, as was her way, intercepted it. She called Evelyn from her office. A letter came. Do you want me to read it? Evelyn was silent for a moment, then said, no. Burn it. Diane replied, all right. Then she said, for the record, if you'd asked me to read it, Feels. I would have. I would not have burned it. Evelyn's voice was quiet. I know. That's why I'm telling you to burn it. Please. And so Diane did. That was the last time Victor entered her thoughts for months. And when he did, it was without hate. Feels. It was with a strange, cold pity, like one who has climbed a mountain and finally sees, with perfect clarity, the place they began. Feels. She saw him then for what he was, a small man who was told his entire life he was a giant. The void between the myth and the man was the engine for every act he ever committed. In the end, his world was only propped up by the belief of others. Feels. The moment one person let go, the whole edifice collapsed. That single break destroyed all his other bonds, each one built on the same fragile ground. She didn't pity him. Mostly, she felt a detached curiosity. Did he read books now? Feels. Did he have a single true friend? Did he ever wonder how she took her coffee, then realize he never knew? She suspected he did not. Feels. She could imagine him retelling the story of his ruin 100 times. In each telling, he was the tragic hero, while she was just scenery. She had made peace with being furniture in his narrative long ago. Feels. It was no longer her job to be a player in his tragedy. Her only role now was to be the lead in her own. But if anyone had asked her, Evelyn would have said this. Revenge is not what you imagine it is. It is not a towering inferno. Feels. It is not a chilling scream in the dark. Not a woman in a red dress with a blade. Those are only the posters for a far more complex film. Feels. The truth is that real revenge is a slow, quiet, patient thing. By the time it is over, you are not the person who began it. The woman who leaves the ballroom is not the woman who walked into that study with a phone. Feels. The woman who leaves has spent 8 months building a new self. In the end, the husband is not the point. The transformation is the point. She would have said the worst thing Victor ever did was not the affair. Betrayal is common, almost cheap. No, Feels. His worst crime was the 7 years before. The years he came home, ate beside her, and slept next to her, while carefully constructing a life in which she was utterly and completely unseen. Feels. The affair was just a symptom. Being unseen, that was the sickness. A woman can heal from being cheated on, But a woman cannot survive being in a room with a man for 7 years and being completely invisible. That kind of erasure is a slow poison, feels. By the time you know what is happening, you are already spiritually gone. The hard part was not his ruin. The hard part was climbing out of that grave herself. She would have told you, if asked, that her proudest moment was not the ballroom, feels. The ballroom was easy. It was just a 40-minute performance she had rehearsed for 8 months, feels. No, the real accomplishment came on a Tuesday afternoon the next spring, in the greenhouse behind their house. Marguerite was visiting and asked Evelyn how she liked her coffee. Evelyn said, "With milk and a little sugar." Marguerite answered, "I know, feels. I remember." And in that quiet moment in the greenhouse, Evelyn began to weep. Not a great sob, just a silent one. Marguerite let her, placing a hand on her shoulder and saying nothing, feels. She was the kind of woman who knew some tears must be allowed to fall without words. That, Evelyn would have said, was the real victory, the moment she knew it had all worked. Not the ballroom, the greenhouse, feels. A woman crying because someone remembered her coffee. You can't write a scene like that. You can only earn it, years after you burn down your life to rebuild it, when you know the new foundation is real. In the end, her life was long, feels, and it was mostly quiet. She never became famous. The story of the ballroom was news for perhaps 3 weeks, then it vanished. For the next decade, some in the city remembered. At parties they would whisper, "That's her, the one in the black dress," feels as she passed. Evelyn never acknowledged them. She was done making entrances. She no longer had the need, feels. For 12 years, she ran a secret foundation, one that paid the legal fees for women who had to escape their marriages but had no money. Diane sat on the board. They never ran a single ad. It worked through a whisper network, from one woman to another, feels, through hairdressers, doctors, and nurses in emergency rooms. In 12 years, they bought freedom for 411 women. 2 of them wrote books. 1 became a state senator. Most just found quiet lives in smaller homes, feels, with much better coffee. And Evelyn's face was never in a single photo, because she told Diane on the first day, "My name goes on nothing," feels. Not on the letterhead, not on the website, not on the thank you notes. Put Diane's name on it, use any name but mine. I had my night in the ballroom. That was all I needed. Adrian grew old beside her. Slowly, on a day she could never quite name, he changed, feels. He ceased being the man in the tuxedo at the door and became the man with skilled hands who baked bread, simply because he decided to learn in his 60s and was a natural. At 62, he left his old life behind. 3 houses became 1, feels. The man by the window was gone. He died at 77 in that brownstone on a winter afternoon with his head in her lap, a book lying open beside them on the couch, feels. She stayed beside him until the light bled from the room, and for some time after that, and no, she never did remarry. She had lived the 2 great chapters of her life. In one, she was a man's possession, and in the other, a man's partner, feels. Sometime in her 60s, she simply decided a 3rd chapter wasn't needed. Who else, after all, would ever know the precise way she took her coffee? She lived for 11 years without him, mostly in the brownstone. She read, feels. She walked in the park every morning until her knees told her it was time to stop. So she took shorter walks. Wednesdays were for lunch with Diane, who also never remarried, and who, in her 80s, feels, was the sharpest mind Evelyn knew, which was truly saying something, feels. Once a year, she would speak at a small foundation dinner, introduced under a false name, a private joke that Diane found hilarious, so Evelyn went along with it. She died on a Tuesday in October, in her own bed, and in her last clear hour, feels, she felt there was a perfect secret poetry to that. Because it was on a Tuesday in October an entire lifetime ago, that a phone had vibrated on a marble table, and she had crossed a rug in stocking feet to answer it, feels. That was the last thing Evelyn Marsh thought of before she died. Not the grand ballroom, not the applause, not 800 faces staring back. Just the frug, the stockings, the cool, heavy weight of the phone in her hand. That single, feels, tiny moment when a woman who was furniture lifted glass to her ear and decided, without even knowing it, that she would become something else. And she had, feels, and she damn right she had.